What is up, guys? It is time for an episode of Mind Games Plus. I haven't done this in a while, and today's kind of a special episode. If you've been keeping up with me, you know that I kind of got involved in the ARMS community over the summer. After Smash and Splash 5, I got to meet, at Smash and Splash 5, I got to meet a lot of really cool teams and a lot of really amazing people and players, and really going into the event, one of the teams that I was most excited to both work with and kind of meet was the Fellows in Arms. And if you haven't been keeping up, Fellows in Arms was a multinational esports team in ARMS. Obviously, they had a Swedish player, Chinese player, Pakistani player, and 4, I believe, American players?
Yep. Yeah. 4 Americans.
And 2 of them are here. So
that is correct. Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Hanukkah, you want to take it first?
Absolutely, sure. So my name is Danny, but online I go by Hanukkah Jamboree. I am an ARMS player and tournament organizer from St. Louis, Missouri, right in the center of the country, basically. Been playing ARMS basically since the day it dropped, literally. And I had started running tournaments about a week after that for it. And since then, I joined Fellows in Arms through a small connection with Defer at the time, and then ended up staying on the team until its eventual disbanding.
All right. And my name is Caleb. And I go by Pineapple Freak. I think Hanukkah and I have some of the longest usernames out of any ARMS players or esport players in general. But I am from Ohio, Northeast Ohio, near Cleveland area. And I am an ARMS player since day one, got the game on a whim, and then later ended up joining Fellows in Arms on essentially another whim, and been on the team since then. I've commentated ARMS tournaments, done some coaching for players, competed at the top level. Also am the owner of the ARMS backroom still. And yeah, just pretty much involved with a lot of ARMS stuff.
So for context, Fellows in Arms disbanded after Smash and Splash 5, and this morning, today is October 14th. This morning, the Fellows in Arms kind of a wrap-up documentary aired on twitch.tv/FellowsTV. And, you know, it was kind of nice sitting in chat. It was very clearly kind of like an emotional moment, not just for the guys who are on the team, but for a lot of members of the community who saw them as role models and as friends. So I guess as 2 of the guys that were on the team, kind of what were your reactions as you were watching the documentary? And I guess give the listeners a sense of what the documentary was.
Yeah, I can head the conversation first then. So yeah, the documentary was essentially Defer kind of talked about this with us that we actually, we coordinated interviews during Smash and Splash, and we had talked about, we already knew months ahead of time that Smash and Splash was going to be the end of our team because we were all going different directions, and Defer was kind of done with the sort of administrative thing, not in a bad way, but just moving on to other stuff. So the documentary kind of came as sort of a love note to the ARMS community and a thank you for everything that they have done for us. And Defer worked very hard on putting everything together and making it very professional looking, which I think it definitely does. So yeah, that was put together over the span of a couple months. Defer had taken some breaks in there, and he did most of it. And then the Fellows in Arms players and teammates provided some clips, and also, obviously did the interviews that were shown during that documentary. And it also sort of catalogs a lot of just the ARMS community in general, because we've been so heavily involved with the start of the game.
Danny?
So watching the documentary, unfortunately, I had to deliver something to my girlfriend's film shoot when the documentary was starting. So I got in there right at the time the team interviews had started. But it's definitely I mean, it's an emotional experience to watch a documentary that's based on your team and a year's worth of work wrapping up. Because we all put in a lot of effort into playing for the team, creating content, working to help each other out with team adjacent goals like personal projects. Like TOing local tournaments wasn't necessarily for the team, but that was a thing I was already doing, and Defer did a lot of advertising for it. I always updated to Twitter about it, stuff like that. So watching the documentary was just it's a trip. You know, it's weird to sit there and watch it, especially like live with 30 other people. But it's nice. It's a nice experience to have that sort of community closure.
Yeah, I agree with Hanukkah that, you know, for me it was a very emotional experience because during this past year since Arms came out, I mean, a lot has happened in my life in terms of graduating with my master's in business, moving out of my parents' house, then living on my own, and getting married 2.5 months ago now. And throughout all of this, sort of the one constant that has been going on in this like very transitionary period in my life has been the Arms game and the community around it. So definitely was a very emotional experience watching it the first time because I saw it before it aired today, and I did cry during the end of it.
I mean, I think you are not the only one. Yeah. Personally,
yeah.
as someone who, you know, I obviously met you guys at the tail end of the Fellows in Arms experience, but kind of seeing both the way that you guys interacted outside of my interactions with you, as well as the outpouring of love and support from the community, it reaffirmed a lot of those feelings of like, yeah, this is a tight-knit community, and realistically, even if you're on a different team, there is still just this endless appreciation and love for each other.
Oh, absolutely. Like that's been one of the main things is it's so odd to see that in such a competitive game because, you know, there's obviously been some arguments and some, you know, salty feelings about players from a lot of tournaments and stuff. But for the most part, like at the end of the day, everyone can still have a conversation, or if they meet at a local, just still hang out and just have fun together and not really have any long lasting harsh feelings. And that's something that I think goes a long way in terms of like building a community for any game.
Oh, for sure. So I said in the start of the episode that Fellows in Arms was a multinational team, but obviously you guys know the inner workings of the team significantly better than I do. So I guess give the listeners a sense of what the team was, because it, from my perspective, it was a lot more than just like an esports team. You know, it didn't feel just like, oh, this is like TSM. They have a team. That's it.
Yeah. It was way more than a team in the sense of it, like the Fellows. So the Fellows in Arms chat has always been named the Fellows in Arms VIP. That's the channel name for it. And that channel has, I mean, so many countless messages and so many conversations about just personal issues as well. Like it's so weird, but after just a couple months of being in the team, from my perspective, because I was the sixth member of the team, like even at that point, we would have conversations about pretty much anything, like any personal issues or anything, and we were comfortable sharing that with each other because we knew no matter under any circumstances it would not leave that chat. And I think that alone shows how ridiculously close and how ridiculously good of a thing we had going there, because we still have that channel and we still talk in that, and it's the same way. Like we have that level of trust that is almost essentially like brotherhood, and that's what a lot of us have discussed in terms of being brothers.
Dan, you want to add to that?
I mean, Pineapple hit everything. I agree completely. Yeah, there was being an international team, there's messages going on at all hours. Because when I would when I would get ready to go to sleep, then Meow would wake up and be like, "Time for school," or it would be, "I'm getting ready for bed," and Meow's like, "Time to go to sleep. It's 9 a.m." And we're like, "Meow, please sleep at normal hours in Pakistan, please, for the love of God." You're a growing boy. You need it.
Yeah, it's so funny because you can wake up at any day. I know Hanukkah probably feels this way, and there's just a conversation from when you were sleeping going on between other members, like always.
I mean, no, for sure. There was always just tons of stuff happening. People talking about what tournaments they were in, plugging stuff on Twitter, other things like that. There was always just like work being done or a friendly conversation to be had.
And Fellows in Arms, I think what it did differently from a lot of other organizations is that it feels a lot like Flourish, in a sense, where it wasn't just for players, but it felt like it was a space for anyone interested in the community, in the game, to grow that interest. I mean, do you think it's a reach to say that through Fellows in Arms, your interest and your passion in TOing and organizing events has grown, Danny?
Oh, absolutely. For sure. Fellows gave me a ton of support and help when I was TOing. Because a lot of times I'm TOing events that have like 6 different games at them. I'm there all day. I don't get to eat lunch, much less dinner. And I don't have time to plug any of this on social media. I probably don't have time to stream. And they would help come in a lot and support the event, make sure people knew it was happening, give it viewers, talk about it on Twitter, that kind of stuff. So really it was like things that I had to do or could do to enhance my event, they would just assist with. And it would be run smoothly and it would be awesome. It'd be like a dream.
Cool. And from a coaching perspective, Caleb, do you think that the kind of same applies where you may not have actually felt like you were the coach per se, but there was this mutual understanding of everyone improving, both as players, as coaches, as TOs, as commentators?
No, absolutely, because for most members, aside from maybe Meow and Formal Cat, in terms of them being younger and not involved with it, like we would, if I had a question about commentating or TOing or coaching or anything, like if anyone had any questions, you had a lot of like-minded people. And although obviously our Fellows in Arms was nothing compared to these bigger organizations in terms of the size or the economy behind it, we had a lot of talent in terms of just how the skill sets that we had developed or had before during the lifespan of the team that came to fruition, in terms of like we would actively be able to help each other and build each other up. And I think if you look at where we are now as people and or as players and TOs compared to when we started with the team, it's leagues different. It's crazy how much I think we've all improved in that way.
Do you, kind of going back to what I just said with Fellows in Arms, feeling like it really naturally led into a lot of what Scrimps is doing with Flourish? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think in a sense, both, like, in terms of Scrimps, and for those of you who don't know, Scrimps is a TO, streamer, commentator, does a lot of great things for the ARMS community and other communities as well, such as Mario Tennis Aces currently. We obviously have a goal in mind. We've always had a goal in mind of trying to, gain a little bit of popularity or gain some, notoriety. But I think honestly, what underlies all of this is like an altruistic nature behind both Fellows in Arms and other people's efforts. Like we honestly, for a lot of this, we do nothing of this for anything other than just like the support of the community and love of others. Honestly, it's very odd because everyone in Fellows in Arms is kind of like that, with sort of this altruistic nature, and that's why people kind of viewed us as these community leaders, because we wouldn't get into petty arguments or lashed out at people because we were sort of like, in a sense, above falling to that sort of folly in terms of just trying to be these positive influences to others.
And I think all of that really actually hit this culmination at Smash and Splash, where you got to really tell your story, be a full team, and we can get to that point in a second. But the fact that at Smash and Splash you were able to represent yourselves as a full team from all over the world, and as friends who over the past year had developed really what boils down to like a brotherhood, a very close connection with each other. What was that feeling like? Because it's one thing to go to an event and see your friends. I love going to events and seeing people I've seen before, but to go and have these deep, incredibly meaningful connections, and for Smash and Splash 4 to be the first time that all of you had been together, I'm sure that throughout that weekend it was honestly just such an emotional experience.
Hanako, you want to take this first?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. Obviously, at Smash and Splash, I wasn't spending a ton of time with the team because I was constantly doing TOing work. I'd gotten there Thursday, had like 3 hours to kill while they were still setting up our stage. And then basically for the rest of the tournament, I was either managing things or trying to get some amount of sleep. There's very little in between.
Yes, I was able to be there during those couple hours of setting up, and that was sort of a bit relaxing.
Definitely getting to spend time with like Nobi and Meow, who I saw at EVO Japan, and I wasn't so sure if I would see them again at all. Getting the chance to be like, oh, thank God, this is definitely this could be a recurring thing. This could happen again in the future. It wasn't just a one and done. And then seeing Pineapple for the first time and getting the whole team together to meet, eat, hang out. It doesn't feel real, honestly, and it still kind of doesn't. I was in such a privileged place to have that experience happen, and to be able to relish in those memories and just kind of be like, all these friends I've been talking to for a year, we all got together from literally across the world. It's almost near impossible, and I can't imagine it would have ever happened when my friend brought over ARMS on day 0 and was like, hey, you want to play some ARMS right now? And I was like, sure.
You make him sound like just a stereotypical nerd.
Okay, yeah, that's honestly not what Burr is like. Burr is the one that brought it over. It was. Yeah, but the thing was, he was like, hey, I'm going to come over to your Friday Smash Fest, but I have to stop at Walmart first. And I'm like, why? He goes, I need to buy ARMS. And I'm like, okay, I don't think anyone here is going to play it, but you do you.
Yeah, I mean, that was my experience. That's another conversation entirely. But I had no intentions of buying ARMS or playing it during like the 3 months leading up to it, honestly. But okay.
I was gonna say, I remember when ARMS was announced and the joke was Smash died for this. Like,
oh,
that was
I remember that.
In all of the rooms I was in, it was just like, Smash died for this. Smash isn't coming back. ARMS is Smash 5. And,
I mean, I gotta be. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I had very little intention to play the game, and Smash and Splash 5 literally incentivized me to go out, buy a Switch, buy ARMS.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's similar. Yeah, that's how I felt, honestly. Before ARMS came out, I thought, for all like my one main thought about ARMS was like, this is just Wii boxing again. Like, no one's gonna play this. This is gonna be such a boring game. And then obviously when it came out and I started playing it, and I've told this before, but Splatoon 2, I got ARMS as a sort of gateway to hold off until Splatoon 2 came out a month and a half later. And then when Splatoon 2 came out, I didn't want to play it. I was like, I just want to go back to ARMS actually. So that's what that's what I did. But in terms of what Hanukkah was saying about Smash and Splash, it was this sort of surreal experience in terms of, for me, most of my, like, anytime I would spend vacationing, I was in a long distance relationship before I got married. Now currently not in a long distance relationship because I'm married. But I would spend most of my weekends or time I would possibly vacation, honestly, going back and forth between our houses. And honestly, since I was 16, because the last vacation I ever went on before going to Smash and Splash was when I was 16. I went on a cruise with my family. And Smash and Splash was the first, like, quote unquote vacation I've had since then, in like 6 years' time, since I started working and going to college and stuff. So it was sort of surreal to have the experience of meeting all the people in the community that I had been talking to for 6-7 months, and then finally coming together and having what was honestly the craziest weekend I've ever had. It was a wild experience to meet everyone. And, the tournament itself wasn't even the main draw. That's not like, when I think back on Smash and Splash, even though I placed, like, very well in the tournament, that is not what I think of. I think of the times I had with the community. I remember there was a great experience where everyone was in our hotel room, because our hotel room sort of became the ARMS room during Smash and Splash. Like, we had 20 people in there at some times playing ARMS. And I remember one night I'm like, all right, I don't need to play ARMS necessarily, because I've already been playing it a lot, obviously. I think I'm just going to go to the pool. And I remember me and one of the other Kid Cobra mains, because we're very character loyal in terms of alliances with others. Obviously, in any fighting game, I went to the water park at Kalahari with one of the other Kid Cobra mains, Cold Stare, for like an hour and a half. And we just went to the hot tub and then went to the lazy river together. That was like one of the best memories. Was just like completely like just hanging out and enjoying the company of others like that with the community. It was just fantastic, and those are the best memories from that.
I mean, and going back to the, this was the first time all of you got together at one tournament, and Danny was saying how at Evo Japan you got to meet Nobi, Meow, and I assume Defer was also there. Was anyone else from Fellows at Evo Japan?
No. So the only times that Fellows in Arms had gotten together was Evo Japan with Defer, Meow, Nobi, and Hanukkah, and then at Smash Out Hunger, which was a month before or after
Before
Evo Japan. Before. Mm-hmm. That was Hanukkah, Akiosho, and Formal Cat.
Okay. So
yeah, it was wild.
You've been out of being in Fellows in Arms for, I guess, what, 4 months or so?
Yeah, about 4 months.
About 4 months. Kind of looking back on it, what do you have any regrets? Anything that was kind of a notable challenge or I guess an obstacle for you guys to overcome, both individually and as a team?
Do you mean post disbandment, or?
I guess so. I mean, in those 4 months, you've gotten to kind of reflect on the time you were a team. Has anything kind of stuck out as like, man, I can't believe we did that, or like, damn, I wish we or I had not done this. Anything that in these past 4 months you have kind of looked back on as either challenging or as a mistake as in your time with Fellows?
In terms of regrets, I don't know. Being in Fellows was the first time I had done things like flown to Japan for an event or run a major. So I had a big checklist of things I've always wanted to do, all within a year, which is really cool. In terms Wishing I'd done stuff different. I guess I sort of wish it took place in more online stuff, repping the Fellows brand. But at the end of the day, I couldn't get behind online stuff when I had a consistent weekly or bi-weekly local tournament on top of just online arms feeling really weird and janky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from my end, I don't have any regrets about anything that I'd done during the time or anything that the team had done. Really, I think I played on a lot of online tournaments, and I was able to help the other team in terms of I started commentating, which I'd never done before. Never really intended to commentate either, but it just sort of happened in terms of right place, right time, and right connections. And in terms of the team as a whole, I think that we hit all the marks that we were trying to hit. And I think I guess, especially from what we saw in this documentary, like in terms of the chat's response to it, and just from what people have said since FI disbanded, it's sort of surreal. And I think it's something I didn't think about during the time that I was with the team, on just how much of an impact we had on a lot of people's lives or people's perspective of the team, and that was really cool. So I don't think any of us in the team, I can't really speak for everyone, I guess, but I don't think we have a lot of regrets or things that we had wished we had done differently. I think if anything, it was just that we had more time, because it was always an issue of we didn't have enough time to do everything, because we were trying to, we hosted our own tournament, and we tried to be involved with sort of everything. And I think that it was just a limit of like, oh, we have to sleep at some point. Darn it.
I totally understand that feel. I'm slowly getting to the, man, what if I just don't sleep?
I know you said that you have a very heavy schedule right now in terms of work, school, and podcast life. So
Man, as long as I enjoy it,
get that. Yeah, oh, absolutely. But I'm with you. I worked part-time at Starbucks, finishing my master's degree and playing ARMS competitively. So that was a rough couple months.
Yeah, I'm terrified of when Ultimate comes out, and I know I'm gonna sink so much time into that. And it comes out the week before finals, which is just the biggest kick in the teeth.
It's insane if I look at how much time I've spent in ARMS since it came out. I mean, I passed the 1,200 hour mark a couple weeks back, which is crazy, because that is essentially, yeah, it's 50 days straight in ARMS since it came out, which is ludicrous. And I guess a lot of that, I mean, a good part of that I did spend commentating, so it's not like just playing competitively, but most of it is.
For sure. So I have one more question before we hit this kind of final wrap-up question.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to have an internal Fellows tournament,
ooh,
who would win and why?
Ooh, geez, we actually did do an in-house tournament. That was
Wait,
earlier on. You weren't a part of it, because I think you were at a tournament.
Oh, damn it! I think you're right. I think I remember this.
Yes, we did an in-house tournament though with Defer, Meow, Formal Cat, Akiosho, and myself, because this was before Nobi had joined. Oh man, this is a tough question though. Hanukkah, what do you think?
Oh God. I don't know, man. It's all whenever we still play together, it's always so weird and nonsensical, because we're always trying new stuff and learning how to optimize new sets. So it's hard to gauge anyone's skill level, because we all haven't competed in the same event in a while.
Yeah.
God, I might have to go with Nobi. That man is a freak of nature with Twintel. His ability to box and just flip it up and play something completely different is actually absurd. I think I've only caught him on one of his bad, tired, I'm not really in it right now days, like once, maybe.
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know, because I've gone like I feel like in terms of Fellows in Arms, we played together so much that almost all of us are extremely close with each other in terms of like our win-loss ratio, because we have this heightened level of like we're playing on these fourth level mind games essentially with each other. I would argue it might be like either between Meow, Nobi, or myself, because I've always had this discussion between Fellows in Arms in terms of, if you look at Nobi, Meow, and myself, we play. The breakdown goes like Nobi plays very cold and calculated, and typically he's like this calculated killer, and he always uses extremely effective and pinpointed loadouts and play styles, and it works extremely well. And then you have Meow, who he just does ridiculous, wacky stuff on every character with every arm combination. It's just insane, and it works brilliantly for Meow because he has such a heightened level of that. And then I'm sort of in the middle in terms of I do ridiculous stuff in terms of just I use stupid loadouts. Like I've used just dumb stuff in arms in tournaments too. And then I also sort of am calculated at times. So I don't know. I think it's like I don't know. It could go either way between anyone.
Just for context, in terms of you doing crazy things, do you want to explain the pineapple grab for anyone who doesn't know what a pineapple grab is?
Here's the thing, though. So I've mentioned this before, but the pineapple grab is an insult to myself, actually. So the pineapple grab started in FIA training sessions where everyone noticed, like, well, this was earlier on in my career when I wasn't exactly a top player yet. And at the start of every round as Kid Cobra, I would always dash forward, like almost always dash forward. And I always got grabbed by everyone else in Fellows in Arms. So it became this joke of the pineapple grab just being whenever the first action in any game is you just grab your opponent, because I had just gotten grabbed so many hundreds of times by everyone else. So it sort of became a meme, and then it just caught on in the community in terms of pineapple grabs, just whenever you grab at the start of a match. And I think most people, even now, I think a lot of people think it's sort of like, oh, Pineapple was really good at grabbing people at the start of matches, and it's not that at all. It's the opposite. I got grabbed almost every match.
To be fair, that is how Shrimps explained it to me. So that was my thought on it. I was just like, oh yeah, nah. Shrimps explained this as like a tactic. It's a mind game that Pineapple Freak plays, where his first move is a grab because it just gets in their head, man. They got grabbed right out the gates.
I mean, I will say I'm quite good at pineapple grabbing others now because I do stupid stuff. Like I just posted a clip on Twitter yesterday, I think, where I just stood still at the start of the match, and then my opponent went for an attack, and then I was just able to jump and grab them. Like it was just so stupid because it's like that shouldn't have worked in any context, but just doing nonsense stuff. Because I've noticed at the start of matches, it's just funny to do nothing and see how your opponent reacts, and sometimes the results are hilarious.
Yeah, no, I saw that clip, and I definitely got a nice chuckle out of it. I'm like, you just stood there.
Yeah.
Literally just you didn't even move. You just waited.
Yeah, I mean, the way I play arms competitively is I've never cared. Like I have cared at times about how others perceived me as a top player, but I also just don't care about winning or losing a lot of the time, and I just enjoy trying new things out. So I've done some really stupid loadouts, and I always play Kid Cobra when I play, but I'll use just random arms and just see what kind of stupid combos I can come up with.
I need you to write a Kid Cobra Megaton slap combo. I need that. I
could come out with that.
All right, guys. So before we wrap up, there's one last question. What do you got kind of going on in the future? I guess, if you had to choose one or two things that are the biggest takeaways from your experience with Fellows in Arms, what would it be, and what would you take with you from that experience into future endeavors?
So on my end, it would be that one, I love having a social media manager, and I need to find room and a budget for one. That or just get really good at doing graphic design work for myself. It's so having been through the very basics of an esports team. Obviously it wasn't Cloud9, it wasn't Echo Fox, whatever, but having into the very basics, it's definitely taught me a lesson in being able to sell yourself, because there's going to be days where you're just not performing the same as everyone else. You're tired. You have real life stuff going on. You just worked 60 hours that week to make up for another week where you didn't, or something like that. And you're just not going to perform the same way. So only basing your self-worth and your markability off how you play in the game isn't going to get you too far. You might win some brackets, collect that change from all the 16 people that entered for $5 at your local or something. But if you want to reach beyond that and have a social media image as well as marketability for other teams or sponsors, you need to hit that next step and make sure your Twitter is clean, your Instagram's looking nice, you're making stuff for YouTube, you're streaming on Twitch. And that's a lot to juggle. It is, but that's what the next step is. And it's always a struggle for players to balance esports. I was doing air quotes, but I don't have the camera on. And real life, the job that makes it work, the family you live with, that kind of stuff. It really put that all into perspective of me and how hard it is and what I need to do to balance it.
Caleb?
Yeah, I was just making sure that Hanukkah didn't have anything else to say.
More me!
Yes, more Hanukkah is always a good thing. On my end, it's similar to what Hanukkah said. For me, I think the biggest takeaway was being around like-minded people in terms of our outlook. Like I said, I thought Fellows in Arms was very altruistic in terms of our intentions and motives, and marketing ourselves was a big component of that. My biggest takeaway was sort of just hard work and being dedicated to a hobby, because I've never participated in sports growing up in my life at all. Never been on a sports team, never been on a team really at all. I've always been more of a lone wolf sort of person, and Fellows in Arms kind of taught me that sort of teamwork, even though it wasn't a cooperative game in that sense, but just the connections we had and the way we worked together in terms of graphic design and everything. And I think that, the other takeaway for me was not caring about wins and losses at all. As a top player, I sort of have focused very heavily on my mental game. Because I personally think I have very little skill when it comes to video games at all. I'm just very persistent, and that's why I have 1,200 hours in Arms. Is I just stick with it, and for me, I was around people that kind of put me up to push myself and to do that and continue at the game, even though I don't think I was very good early on. Like, I think I was one of the late bloomers in terms of how many hours I put into the game of my results. And then what Hanukkah said in terms of not basing your personal image or worth on just wins and losses. Because I think that's one of the worst things you can do as a competitive player, because you're going to have bad weeks or bad months or bad years in your gaming career if that's what you value. And you really need to find something else that drives you in terms of the connections you make and the experiences you take away. Because I think looking back at the team as a whole from start to finish, I don't think of the tournament results really at all when I think back on the team. Like, those don't stick out to me, like which members won tournaments here and there. That doesn't really stick out. It's more of the camaraderie and just the compassion that we had for each other, and that's the impact that I think we leave. Not these results that no one will really care about in a year. It's just the people themselves and the images they create.
I mean, I totally agree. I think that let's just for a moment compare to the Smash community. I obviously think that Armada's like many year undefeated streak is hugely notable, and it'll be remembered for a long time. But I think what's more important is the impact he's had on the community around him. I think that's very true of basically any game, any community. It doesn't even have to be esports or anything along these lines. Any person who both loves the community and has every intention to give back will be remembered as such. And I think that from my point of view, Fellows in Arms did that. It provided this kind of like open and very welcoming space for people to get involved with the game with a set of guys that were very, very friendly and always super helpful to the community around them.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there was a single moment in the career of any of the players on Fellows in Arms where after a terrible loss of a tournament or something, like any of us ever lashed out on the other person. And we might have wanted to punch the other person in the face, probably, right? but we never. I don't think any of us ever outwardly would show that, because it goes a long way for the other person to show them respect and to acknowledge their win over you or something, and to take the higher road in terms of not falling to anger or saying things that you would regret. Right? That's like, it can mean the world to someone if you are viewed as a role model in the community, to reach out to someone who's not very a top level player or something, and spar with them or give them some advice, or if you lose someone in a tournament, show them that respect. And that goes so far in some people's lives, and they'll remember that, I think, way more than just like you said, focusing on like a long-standing career of wins and losses or something.
Well, with that said, I want to thank you both for coming on. Do you guys want to do some shout outs for the FIA guys as well as anyone else in the ARMS community? Go right ahead. The floor is totally yours.
Definitely, yeah. Shout out to all former FIA members. Defer for running everything, and for remembering me from the one time I watched his stream during the first 2GGP, because that was how I originally met him. I was just like, oh, there's one guy streaming ARMS right now during the 2GGP. I'll go watch him. And he would remember the conversation we had in there, and kept up since then. And it was just nice to sort of be able to meet everyone through one small interaction like that. Akio, Formal, Meow, Nobi for traveling to one or both of my events, depending on whether they travel for Smash Out or SNS. All of St. Louis ARMS, definitely, because I probably would not have kept playing if it was online only. The offline scene and the camaraderie between them, that means a lot to me. And when FIA wasn't there, STL ARMS was, and it was nice to fall back onto a group of local dudes that like to play and grind and be a family as much as Fellows did.
Yeah, on my end, huge shout outs and thanks to everyone in Fellows in Arms. Formal Cat, honestly, for getting me into the team initially. I remember in the public ARMS server, how I got started with FIA was Formal was just looking for friendlies, and I said, "Oh, sure, I'll do some friendlies. I'm interested in sparring." So I joined the Fellows in Arms server then, and then I was in voice chat with Formal Cat, Akio Show, and I think Hanukkah or Defer joined at one point. And then they were just sort of like, this guy seems really chill, we should add him to the team. And I joined shortly after. So huge shout outs to them for adding me and having me join the team, and all the FIA members for just being a group of close friends. Special shout outs to Nobi and JM Canada, actually, for being some of my very close friends this past year outside of just ARMS. Those are two guys who I have gone to talk to about anything, especially Nobi for being another married man in the community and sharing a lot of sort of the same steps in life that I'm at. And it's been great to talk and spar with him. And then shout out to the Ohio ARMS people, because there's only 5 of us, actually, including myself, who have been long-standing in the Ohio ARMS scene, but we still do online bi-weeklies every other week, and we still spar and talk quite frequently, and it's just a great experience. And then also, I want to give a huge shout out to my wife for supporting my ARMS career and being very supportive of me playing at the top level in a video game, and giving me the moral support that I need outside of just being a top player.
All right, guys. Well, before I cut off, I'm gonna say shout outs to, I guess, thanks to our sponsor, Flourish Esports. I'm glad that I was able to get involved in the community through ARMS and get to work with all of you in some way, shape, or form. And we'll be keeping on doing it.
Yes, we will.
Arms
we are also on that team.
ARMS is coming back to Smash and Splash 5. I'm gonna try to potentially make it out to Smash Out because I'm ready for a sleepover and some dominoes and some fighting games until 5 a.m. Isn't that right, Danny?
Oh yeah, except not the night before because I have to be up at probably 6 a.m. to run Smash Out.
Night after.
Night after, it depends on whose house you're at. Mine will be open for casual sleepover. Tiger Boys will be open for a much harder version of sleepover.
Okay. I'm trying to have fun, not die.
But dying is fun.
I mean, dying is fun if I wake up the next morning with the worst hangover of my life. Thank you, Fireball. Shout outs to Fireball.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually sponsored by Fireball.
But hey, Fireball, if you want to sponsor this show and get involved in esports, I'm your man. Actually, no, Tiger Boy's your man. But Tiger Boy is probably the best possible person for Fireball to sponsor.
I'm pretty sure it's him and Quilly just keeping them single-handedly in business in Missouri.
What about Sojo?
Oh yeah, no, Sojo helps too. That's right. I forgot about that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming. This has been another episode of Mind Games Plus. Asterion signing out.